Welcome back, beautiful people. It's time for the Shambler vs. Aod 64 Part 2. As I predicted previously, we will most likely be looking at a three-parter this time around, so let's get into Radium. Because it's a good map to change after Alpha XY. It's the same kind of map insofar as bottom left, top right. And of course it has the bona fide bitty-bit tiles underneath the minerals that were used for symmetry and forgotten, never to be removed. And of course, it is also a space platform map, just like Alpha XY, but it looks very different. And of course, it's also based on Axiom, another Biddy map. So this is a Biddy map. Apparently, he also was involved in Alpha XY, so it's Biddy-tastic, Biddy Central, our sponsor, our primary sponsor here, and certainly a man who has given a lot via the coffee page that we have for supporting donations, supporting development of the project, and so on and so forth. Let's introduce our players. We've got our good friend Aod64 in the bottom left as our Pumpkin Terran. And up in the top right, we have Shambler, the Shambler, as our White Terran. Channeling my inner, oh man, I think it's Underwood, right? Of course, disgraced actor Kevin Spacey, but he did do a pretty good job in the show House of Cards. I think it's hard to argue otherwise. It is a tragedy for everybody who was involved, obviously, on the receiving end of his conduct. But I gotta say, doesn't it just suck when people who are really talented at what they do turn out to be douchebags? Doesn't that just suck, guys? Of course, you could probably use a stronger term for that, but this is YouTube, and this is the Shambler scouting Aod64's 2 Fulcrum opener. I think it's going to be kind of interesting because Shambler's also going Fulcrum. I believe he's gone Bio this whole time. Yeah, so the first 3 games of the series so far, there was a bugged version of Alpha XY where it looked like Shambler did add some comments saying that most likely that was a recent bug added to the map where he accidentally put extra resources in one spot. Classic move, of course. Also, it would, come to think of it, it would be cool if Biddy could comment about what his involvement with Alpha XY actually was, because, I'm curious. Now, it's going to be a Cyclops after the first Vulture, which is going to put some defensive mines down. This makes a lot of sense because from Shambler's POV, he has 1 less production structure than his opponent, and it looks like Shambler might be thinking about going for a Ministry or something. Now, here comes Minesweeper Mason, or as Aod likes to call them, Manson. I still don't know why he calls them that. I guess he likes to, just invent letters. But he's the champion. He's the reigning Acropolis #2 champion. So he gets to rename the unit to Manson sometimes. And we'll see what he wants to do with his minefield here. Obviously, only 1 mine taken care of by that Mason. Does kind of pose a problem here. So the Ministry is going to go down. The shuffle here is, man, really behind 1 Vulture, 2 Cyclops, and 2 Lobotomy Mines. He feels confident in going for a Palladium. We see the Vulture count has certainly gone up, and I feel like this is an opportunity for a big bust. We might be moving in to another game pretty soon here, because I really just don't understand how you could imagine, even just sacking 1 Vulture and then running the rest through. You could pick the Cyclops very fast. They only have the 1 armor. So you're talking about dealing 18 damage to them a pop with your Vultures. Maybe that time is fast falling. I think, yeah, looking at it right now, it does look like that Palladium is going to be able to give birth to its first phalanx of the match. And that, the Vulture count is so high, he really could have just stormed the gates at any point here. He didn't realize that his opponent was predominantly making Cyclops. And I say predominantly, that kind of feels like something farcical to say, because he only made 2. But hey, that is the predominant number. That is the majority. Laying more mines all over the place, getting map control, but the Phalanx is about to evict the Vultures from the vicinity. That being said, while it's deployed, it is very, very snipeable. More snipeable than you might initially think. Got some Goliaths heading on out of town, leaving the home base, and it looks like the Phalanx is actually just narrowly out of range of the Vultures. Maybe it hasn't even been shown just yet, and so Shambler, whose star pad is about to finish, is going to have to invest in some additional production. He's adding a 3rd Fulcrum all the way in the back for some reason. We will be taking note of that later, and I suppose he might be thinking about doing a Cyclops drop. Not quite sure what other purpose he has for the star pad. First Phalanx shot is good on the Goliath. He is going to have to fall on back. He's going to dive onto that 1 Vulture just to stop the mine sweeping from continuing, but that did sweep a lot of the mines, has to be said. Single Cyclops from Aod coming on in, saying, "Hi, I'm also a Cyclops." Okay, all right. Well, that was an interesting move. Yeah, we're up to two Phalanxes. This does feel like it's really quite difficult for Aod to bust now. especially with these extra mines that are coming in from the reinforcement vultures. All right, it's an ant seal. That's going to make life even more difficult for any supposed bust. Right now, it's just kind of a standoff, right? I mean, Aoud is slowly building up his ministry. He's just been on 2 folk this entire time. This is all he has right here at the front line of the fight. And with the mines being taken care of on Shambler's side, he feels empowered, able to move forward. He's might be able to drag this Goliath in. Oh, look at that. You can dodge the shots, dude. That's pretty epic. Now, the ant seal is out. Obviously, that is probably going to mean that there's no bust possible here. Good lobotomy mine hits on multiple fronts here. Now that one was not so good. He sieged on top of his own mines. Wow, we've talked about maybe Top Ramen and other Terran players being hoisted by their own petard, but that is probably the biggest sequence of it I have ever seen. Now, that being said, the Ministry is here to try to soak up some of the damage of the Cyclops and stall for Shambler to get more units up and running, but that Vulture count, it's looking pretty scary. Admittedly, there is a Goliath there, but, you know, I'd say his Ministry has indeed been delayed. There is another one operational here for Aoud. His worker count only 2 to the better of the Shambler, but his economy so much more supercharged. Very good, and you know, his mine coverage is very immaculate down here in the bottom. Means that if there was going to be a drop or something like that, it's far from being effective. A couple of mines have been deployed. No ant seal here? I guess it must have been killed by all the Cyclops and the Goliaths. He's going to go ahead and repair that Ministry up because it did take a pretty good amount of damage there. More Vultures rallied across. We do have a Vestry being constructed and an Atlas, so it looks like, yeah, Aoud is just going to do his best to try to stand here and secure an advantage. It looks like he feels like he can fall back now with some element of safety, but man, he could not have known that Shambler was deployed on top of his own mines, right? Like that, it feels like it's impossible for him to have known, and yet he did such a good job of pouncing on the opportunity, tripping the mine with his own Vulture, and suddenly it was all done for Shambler. He had no protection for his own units. It's worth noting that when the ant seal is stunned, I do believe its passive is deactivated, so you don't get the benefit of the shield, which might have helped out there. Oh, a couple stray mines there slowing things down. Insult to injury, but the worker transfer is in. Aoud only up by 6 workers. For now, his Atlas is nearly complete. This is basically like saying to your opponent, hey, I'm gonna just have a tier 2 over you. Is that cool? And that is essentially what has happened here. There's a couple of things that are different, right? There's a star pad for Shambler. He does have mobile detection, but that doesn't really matter so much here. I mean, the one ant seal will help clear out the mines, obviously, but it's not really like Shambler could move across the map from this position very easily. Not before the tier 2 is operational here for Aoud 64, our good friend indeed. He's going to see if he can sort of push back that ant seal. I think with the Goliath he could, but it is pretty low HP, right? And so there is that to be considered. A lot of his units have been shellacked a little bit. We do have some healing on the way in the form of those clerics. He's gone for blackjacks off of the scrapyard. Not a bad shout there. And he will be going in for a captaincy following that. There is a deployed siege tank in that Trojan. That does mean that it will need to play its deployment animation. It has been spotted here, but I don't know if there's any fast units, you know, nimble units that are capable of responding to that. Nonetheless, 2 base versus 2 base, the 3rd Ministry is completed for Shambler. He just can't quite necessarily know that he is free to take this Biddy tiled expansion here for his 3rd base. Commandment on the way. We have a couple of Durandals here on the mantle. He is going to await the drop. It's very, very telegraphed. I would love for him to be able to set some kind of trap here. That would be very crafty. Looks like his Blackjack and Goliath will heckle the Trojan. And, well, he's not actually going to be able to finish the job here, I don't think. Well, maybe that's not true. There you go. Ends up with a couple of Cyclops for the uppercut. And now Shambler will need to use his expensive drop scout to lift this Ministry and say, okay, well, that must mean that your army is mostly back home. He also, crucially, I don't think got deep enough into the scouting area to confirm tier 2 has been taken. We've got a couple Durandals coming. We do have the starport with a commandment finished, a guild hall for autocrats most likely, and pretty soon we are going to see Shambler's tier 1 army be going up against a tier 2 opposition. A lot of minerals in the bank here for Shambler, so he could absolutely be upgrading his economy. He's got 2 palladiums there, so he can make a lot of phalanxes if he so desires. He's actually got 3. I missed the I was looking at this one, and I somehow missed that one that was right there. So he is going to be able to make quite a few phalanxes. That will definitely allow him to hold out against a superior tide. his anti-air is looking a little bit worse for wear, and so if we get a couple of Seraphs out or something like that to just irradiate forever, that could definitely swing the tides over. I mean, what are you going to shoot them down with? One Goliath? Especially with the Azazel in there, I feel like that is a non-starter. The minefield is going to go ahead and be swept towards 12 o'clock. This is going to open up an opportunity for the position down here in the third base to be heckled. Durandals reveal themselves. The Phalanxes are going to deploy. I'd say just stick the Durandals onto those workers, but it looks like Aoud wants to take a delayed fight. I don't necessarily believe in this delayed fight. He's very clumped up and hasn't really been able to get the Azazel to dematrix the Durandals. Okay, now one comes out, a second one even, but yeah, that was never going to work versus that many Phalanxes. You need to split up your army a lot more. The splash damage is going to be way too much, even for tier 2 armies to deal with. So that being said, he does end up denying mining time. Shambler did evacuate his workers, but has to reset him. His 4th ministry on the way. We've got Durandals still on the front lines here for Aoud, but he does need time to reset their HP, using that defensive matrix to heal them up and sustain them from fire. We do have some autocrats making their way in. Durandal plus autocrat, a great combo. Rend the armor, make it so that they penetrate the shots. Very, very powerful units. As a composition, obviously autocrats are reclaimers. And currently they don't have a custom model that is of our own control and making, and so they are a little bit harder to snipe, which is not really like the ideal thing that you could say about them as a unit strength, but I will point that out as well. It is harder to pick them out of a lineup, and so focusing them down. Ah, Shambler! Just shambled his own shamble. Yeah, that's a bug, by the way. I hate when I make a silly decision as well. I assume that what happened is that he ordered to attack his own units, and then he hit the stop key or something, and then didn't hit the stop key, hit the move key instead, and then they kept their their attack order. That must have been what he's talking about, but yeah, that is that's just the way that turreted units work in StarCraft 1, and we have not re-implemented them. So, we have a couple of Fulcrums being once again put down at the third base. By the way, those were not canceled, so those were pretty expensive losses there. I love the Vulture blocking 12 o'clock. He is going to have to send some Phalanxes out to clear that. So far, I mean, Aoud's army isn't terrible, but it does feel like he's really missing out an opportunity to go for a starport heavy composition on 3 bases. He's capping his gas at his third. He has already capped his natural. And I think that's significant because what we need to see pretty soon here is an opportunity for him to wipe the floor with his opponent's artillery-heavy army. Good irradiate, although it does catch his own Azazel. That is probably going to be dead to rights there. Yep, it will end up expiring on the last tick. A couple of Phalanxes offered over to Aoud. And yeah, it looks like, you know, the Phalanxes are kind of running for the hills. They've broken ranks, and they are leaving the area. A couple clerics will heal up those wounded Phalanxes. Looks like they're... I don't know if there was a pause or something, because both of those messages were set at the same time. But either way, Shambler, struggling with some technical difficulties on his side, will be losing 12 o'clock. He did waypoint a bunch of units up to the top left. And it looks like a couple of them will indeed be stolen. Can't unsiege half my shit. Oh, he must have... I wonder if he did that, that unfortunate issue with queuing the order. He can post in the comments if he thinks he queued any siege orders, because if you do that enough, that is a known issue where, for some reason, the default command handling just breaks. That seems unlikely, so I wonder what else he must have been doing. Also, Shambler does sometimes think about things that are bugs, and they are not bugs, they're just him being a goofball. Either way, though, his Phalanx count was spread out, and you could say disparate enough to hold this front, even despite the autocrats. Some Ramses have arrived to help clear through these Goliaths. I don't know that that's going to be enough without the Durandals to rend the armor, but they might get one Goliath dead if they turn around and fire. I don't know if Aoud will do that. He's sort of falling back to a more defensive position in the middle of the map. Whoa! That looks to me like the same behavior that happens when spider mines are misused, but it could also be one of them immortal ramp vortexes. Oh! Never mind. They're just on a bugged patch of the game. That explains everything. Yeah, there was an issue that actually affected anchor loading as well, where if you built an anchor, you could only enter it from the south. And that was just because I thought I was just cleaning up some code, but I actually broke something. You know, many such cases. They are playing on a pre-release version of the game as opposed to a stable one, so sometimes that kind of stuff does happen. I don't know if that's related to what he was talking about there, but I guess we'll see if he ever figures out how to unsiege those phalanxes. He's you know, he'll have my interest. 4th base and 5th base looked like they are in the cards here for AUD 64. Oh, maybe not. No, yeah, there it is. They are, of course, going up on location. AUD does have the tempo advantage right now in this lengthier TVT. Yeah, I like that. I mean, there were definitely opportunities at the beginning of this game to be for it to be an unceremonious footnote if he just attacked in with his vultures. But as of right now, you know, Shambler's trying to do his best to hold on. He's got a lot of minerals in the bank. I love the Durandals as a choice overall. The D-Matrix from the Azazels, and of course standing over them so that they keep that aura, you know, the armor aura that is good for dealing with Goliaths. It really kind of neuters a lot of what Shambler has to offer here. Autocrat's obviously going to be good for turning, you know, positions that are compromised by AUD's forces into more well-held strongholds here. And it looks like top left treasury is indeed... Well, he's going to put down a ministry. He's hoping that it doesn't get spotted. He is going to have to cancel that, you know, and lift the treasury and go somewhere else. You know, at this point, I like that AU didn't even bother continuing to fight that. He's just like, yeah, whatever. I mean, I just leave a couple of units over there and it's fine. 4 phalanxes from the Shambler at a time. It's pretty much all he's producing right now. It's that and Cyclops. He doesn't really have the ability to... I mean, he could go for tier 2 right now, but it feels like he's, you know, kind of at a precipice. He could just be overrun at any given time. And I do think that this could have been won, I would say, a lot faster by AUD. Again, if he had leveraged his air superiority. He has a lot of mantles. He's making those Azazels and Seraphs. Those are vulnerable to Goliath sniping. Those are obviously one of those things that can be, you know, pushing away from the victory, you know, taking... snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, as they say. You know, his Azazel count is only 2, even now, so it's not the best, but he still can get 4 defensive matrices out of there. You can see, I think he was trying to do that just a second ago. Yeah, unfortunately, he ends up spending down all of his energy on the first few rounds, and he's not really quite able to break through this position. The Cyclops doing their best to funnel them through. Some of those stolen phalanxes, obviously turncoats working against each other. I think sieging this position makes a lot more sense, especially when these Cyclops come out to try to contest you, and you can use your phalanxes to try to beat them at their own game. There's a couple of units back here that weren't doing anything either that don't really help AUD's cause, but, you know, he is nearly able to clear the deck there. The Atlas will finish for Shambler. Oh, we might be in for a real long one here, because I'm not sensing that AUD realizes he can just go for, you know, 4 or 5 starport and mass Gorgons to finish this game off in style. Maybe Wyverns if you wanted to be a bit safer about it, because obviously the presence of the Cyclops are potentially dangerous now that the air switch is hit. I suspect that's why Shambler has elected to go for the Cyclops switch, because he recognizes that air is a heavy weakness for him. That being said, it looks like we will see Tier 3 be constructed instead. AUD wanting to end this with perhaps some Penumbra or some, you know, Magnetars, one of those endgame units that we seldom do see. TVT being the primary option here. And yeah, I mean, Shambler might have set himself up a 3-base fort, but he is not immune to damage. I mean, you can absolutely see openings for drops or air raids. You can see certainly openings for air switches just being a way to end the game, and have been for some time. But AUD, not recognizing that or not interested in that, is just going to mass up an unkillable option here. Now, that being said, he has allowed 12 o'clock to be taken by the Shambler, who is doing his typical Shambler things of camping. Again, there are ways around this, but it doesn't seem like AUD is too interested in doing anything about that just now. You also might ask, is there an obvious downside that the reigning champion of Acropolis would not have, you know, would have decided, hey, and rather than, you know, go for air, I'm going to do something else? Is there an obvious logical reason for him to do that? Is there a risk to going for the different route where you're talking about building all these starports? And I think he had enough map tempo, I think he had enough ability to just clear the area that I really, realistically speaking, I don't believe that there were too many things to worry about with regards to going for starports. I think he had enough resources. Now, he might not have known that, and oftentimes players don't necessarily, you know, understand how far ahead they are. I think if in a normal game between different opponents, you know, say you have 2 other, you know, random cross-section of the player base, 2 other players not named the Shambler, neither one of them are the Shambler, and you gave them the exact same situation that what we see here, you'd probably say the player in Shambler's position just GG. because the odds of coming back successfully are very, very low. Shambler will win many games in practice or in, games that are not tournament settings. He'll win many of these matches that he probably shouldn't, just because the other player just gets bored after a certain point. Like, all you're doing is building phalanxes. And Shambler will think to himself that is, an asset to himself. But, it doesn't usually work in practice, because if in a tournament game, they're playing to win, and so they will actually stick around, even if they are bored to tears. That being said, there are opportunities for Aoud to have gone a different route, and I think maybe in a different route he might not have played so conservatively and gotten to the point where he needs tier 3 to finish the job or what have you. That being said, Shambler has secured a 4th base. It looks like he will be pressing his phalanx line immediately towards the top left. There are still plenty of them over here, but again, where is the anti-air? It's non-existent, and yet Aoud still feels strongly about the ground game, going to go for apothecaries now. I think at some point it becomes kind of egregious that you don't pick an air unit. I mean, you're at tier 3, the world is your oyster, but... yeah, okay, Shambler making moral proclamations. I don't think you can make moral proclamations about who wins or who loses when you're playing like this. Just a personal opinion from the caster. We do have the Wellbore out. That's pretty neat, right? You get the meaty amount of Vespene per return. You have 9 Vespene per return. I see a nanite assembly on the way. I'm actually kind of surprised to see dilettantes be the choice. I would have thought he would have gone for silver tongues so that he could run them down with Durandals to absorb the phalanx pressure and then just use silver tongues to one-shot individual phalanxes or whatever. You get enough of them down there, they're going to put a ridiculous amount of power down in one spot. They're very good single target, anti-tank, capital class ships. But it doesn't seem like that is indeed what Aoud is concerned with. I mean, just look at this tank line. You look at show them this, they're gonna just be like, yes, I make wraiths or gorgons. I make anything that is in the air and shoots down. I will defeat those phalanxes. I mean, I think it's just a couple of Cyclops and Goliaths that are the anti-air. There's not even any watchdogs. I guess there's 2 of them over here. It does beggar belief at a certain point why your opponent would do anything else. But Shambler's playing his SimCity game. He's playing Civilization, or no. It's literally called SimCity. I don't know why I blanked on that for a while. He's playing a different game than what Aoud 64 is playing. Aoud is playing Dark Ages. It's a custom game mode where air units are disabled unless they're helpful. If they're... Oh, he's going to go for Pythians. Okay, that's cute. I think he might be kind of cheeky. He might be being cheeky. He might be playing into... He's like, yeah, this is how I want to play. You want to play like this? I'll meme on you and win. Guys, full disclosure, Shambler may win this game. I'm not going to, I don't mean to shatter anybody's thoughts or illusions, but Shambler may win this game. He does have autocrats coming, a single one. It doesn't look like he's going to be liable to be making any tier 3 anytime soon. He doesn't quite have the economy for that. He has not even capped any gas to my knowledge. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. The big force over here is looking healthy for Aoud, and he is now falling back across the map to meet his Pythian. Now, the Pythian can load a lot of units in. I think you can fit... I actually don't know how many... Well, there you go. Okay, 6 dilettantes, 7 Durandals. That's quite a bit. And it looks like he will be using some Magnetars afterwards, so he will be making some hostile air units. Some Silver Tongues are on the way. He's made 5 apothecaries. Now we have Shambler deciding to move out of his shell. Spotted by a single Ramses, that is going to make it so that Aoud falls back with his army. He wants to try to defend this position. Has a couple of Sentinels there. Obviously, that will not do anything to the Phalanxes, but it might chew up a few of the Cyclopses on the way. This is going to be an opportunity for Aoud to strike back. Remember, we still have this slow-moving Pythian transporting an astronomical amount of strength. Defensive Matrix onto the Durandals. We got Autocrats reclaiming the Phalanxes. That's going to soak up a lot of the damage here. Remember that Pythian moving in from 3 o'clock on the map. Also, yeah, it looks like this fight is pretty much won without serious casualty, as the drop is going to hit inside the main base, as long as Aoud, well, he's tasked it, but it doesn't... Okay, he is going to start unloading stuff. All right, getting on top of 4 out of the however many... Oh, actually, that might be... Okay, 4 out of the 5 Phalanx production structures that we have here for the Shambler. He's going to go ahead and Doom Drop with that Pythian. All of the units are out. By the way, dilettantes don't have the greatest armor pen, but you don't need armor pen with the ministries here. They are gatting, and we don't see them a lot, so I was focusing a bit on them just to show them off. Nice irradiates coming out as well. Defensive matrix on them. I mean, they don't really hold up to all the phalanxes. It's the least efficient way that you can actually clear some of this out. It looks like 2 out of the 5 structures are gone as far as the add-ons are concerned. The Gats are very, very thematic, very, very cool, but again, their armor pen is, let's just say, not great. That being said, this Phalanx line has been partially shattered over here. Very, very impressive. That being said, I don't think it's going to quite be enough to do anything other than sabotage the economy, which maybe is all he needs, as obviously the third base has been wiped as well. We've got more units raining on in. We have a couple of autocrats for the Shambler, so it's no longer advisable to just sort of blindly A-move into this position. But yeah, the top left is crumbling. The Pythian still sort of watching over and unlikely to be cleared out. Unfortunately for our Silver Tongue there is no help from the Azazels. I did hear the Magnetars. Okay, they have been waypointed over here to help clear that position out. Now, that being said, Shambler's going to move to the bottom right. We have a couple of Sentinels on this side, but he's actually bisected the base, which is very funny. It's not exactly what you would have initially expected. Big army has been assembled over here, might end up moving back at that point. He's got Durandals and Dilettantes and Magnetars just sort of causing havoc, wreaking havoc over here at this point. And now, yes, indeed, his one weak spot, the 6 o'clock position, has been found. He's going to go ahead and transfer over to the bottom right from his, I guess his, what would you say? I used to know these positions because Axiom was so common in the map pool. I don't really know them anymore, but obviously 6 o'clock is compromised. The army going to come on in there. The workers transferring away from 5 to 4, and the Dilettantes they are admittedly getting shellacked right now. But that being said, the Magnetars are out. There is no anti-air. You can't really hold yourself away from this position, and you're getting pulled into the Durandals. The Dilettantes open and fire. The third Magnetar joins the fray, and you only have Cyclops to deal with it. Such is the tech disparity. That ministry has not been lifted. A single Wyvern has arrived, but obviously it's going to get taken care of, and it looks like no 12 o'clock there. Depleted minerals in every base. No gas cap. Poor Shambler, quite literally. But I would say a deserved outcome. Come on, let's be real. Phalanx is loose in the nanite areas. They're not going to be able to get too much done there. That will be a wrap for that attempted attack. You know, it was successful in disrupting mining at 2 bases, including destroying one of them. This ministry only now landing. I love this move. I don't think it's actually going to work to kill everything, but it's cute, you know? It's very cute. I love that they attacked the Durandal over here as well. Hey, he ends up clearing one of them. That's not bad. He'll clear that. He'll clear the... He should clear the Durandal. Oh, he's not going to attack the Durandal by default. How sad. So a couple of units will still be there as more Sentinels are erected. Looks like a couple of Wyverns heading to the bottom right. There are a couple of Watchdogs here, and in fact, more of them are being constructed. I think now, since that one Wyvern got loose at 9 o'clock, you know, Ayud is to the wiser for that. Now, Wyverns are pretty good, so they might take a little bit here to be felled by just a few Watchdogs. But, man, if they fly in like this could be a bit of a problem. They are going to go ahead and try to fly in from the bottom side. Okay, looks like they will be able to heckle the Mason count a little bit. We do have a couple of Durandals that can try to body block the shots. There's a lot of Masons over here. Shambler, by the way, has 56 of them, so, yeah, not quite ideal. Not really going to be able to escape from the Magnetar pull either, it doesn't feel like. There you go. All right, this area has been shellacked and wiped. Shambler has almost nothing left. I'm surprised he has not GG'd. We got some Minotaurs coming out. We got plenty of Silver Tongues. I shouldn't say that I'm ever surprised that Shambler doesn't GG, but I am genuinely surprised that he is still trying to hold out when he knows his opponent has, you know, what is this? 1, 2, 3 more mining bases than him? Well, I guess this will be the third once it gets reestablished. I suppose that the depletion is true for both players. So, but still, when you're all on depleted bases and your opponent has 2 mining bases that aren't depleted yet, that's pretty significant. So, especially when they have so many Masons you didn't kill with your Wyverns, and they've got so many bases they can go ahead and retake. That being said, the money isn't like that. It's not like there's a gross bank here for Ayud. He still has some work to be doing there. And oh, Shambler, you're on some hash, I think, my man. I love the Durandals rending the armor of the Phalanxes so that they can actually be pulled in tank mode. That's an unsurprising position there. And yeah, the army is just enormous right now. It looks like Ayud is going to go ahead and send Shambler to hell in style. He's got a couple of Gorgons escorting the Wyverns this time. There's more Watchdogs where that came from. I don't think that there's any likelihood of him snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. In fact, he is a testament to how silly Shambler is. That he continues to stay in games for an egregious amount of time when he has no hope of really doing anything. Even these Watchdogs are holding his Air Force back. I can't believe it. It is shocking. Atlas will fall soon. There's only a few phalanxes left between Shambler and having only a few air units for a military force. So let's all thank Shambler for having this video take over a half an hour when it was determined a very long time ago. And that's pretty much it. He's going to try to float a ministry into the corner because he, by the way, did tell me that he never does this. So, you know, I just wanted to point that out because he is doing it. He's been caught on camera. You can't escape the Magnetars. They will pull your structures into them. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I can't believe that I can believe it. You guys know what I mean? Sounds tautologous, but it doesn't have to be. I love that there's just one unit here and there that's just going to be waypointed to clear these out. It's beautiful. And Shambler leaves with no GG. I mean, do you guys understand why there's an anti-Shambler society? Like, after a certain point, I hope Shambler can apply some self-reflection on him and figure out, like, hey, you know, maybe I shouldn't behave the way that I behave. And then there wouldn't be an entire clan dedicated to, you know, making fun of me. Ayud's not even in that clan. And I don't know how he didn't immediately join the other clan after dealing with that. All right, we will be back in a few days for part 3 of this series. And I think that will be the last part. I don't actually suspect that the other replays will take quite so long to get through. I believe they are all fairly fast games. So join me for a 4-piece on Catalyst between these two players to really settle who the better Terran is right here, right now, when they're not dealing with whatever psychological trauma Shambler puts them through.